Chapter 3 I'tikaf, Seclusion, in the Masjid. The meaning of i'tikaf is to seclude oneself in the Masjid with expression of intention, niyyah, of i'tikaf. According to the Hanafi school of thought, this may be thought of as three different types: wajib i'tikaf, obligatory retreat. I'tikaf becomes compulsory when a person makes it obligatory upon himself. For example, when a person makes a vow to Allah that if Allah fulfills a certain wish of his, he shall perform so many days of i'tikaf. In this case, the moment his wish is fulfilled, the i'tikaf becomes compulsory, wajib. Our person may just make an unconditional vow, whereby he makes i'tikaf wajib upon himself for a certain number of days. This becomes obligatory for him from that moment onwards. Well, one shouldn't make religion hard upon oneself by means of vows, but yeah. Sunnah i'tikaf, following the way. This was the general practice of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It means to seclude oneself in the masjid for the last 10 of Ramadan. And as we find narrated that he started, he left on the 19th to ride before sunset for the 20th. And this is how it was practiced. So you'd think that this means that sometimes it could be the 20th. Because if he was sure to catch the last 10 of Ramadan. Nafil i'tikaf, voluntary seclusion. For the third category, i.e., nafil i'tikaf, no special time and no special number of days are fixed. A person may make an intention for a number of days at any time, even for his whole life, while Imam Abu Hanifa states that i'tikaf must be for not less than a full day. Imam Muhammad states that there is no limit as to the minimum period of time. The fatwa ruling confirms this latter view. Therefore, it is desirable for anyone entering a masjid to make the niyyah intention of i'tikaf for that period, that he will remain in the masjid so that when he is in worship, he also earns the reward of i'tikaf. Part A. Objects of i'tikaf and its advantages. In view of the above, it is advisable that everyone entering the masjid to join the congregational prayer should, on entering the masjid, make the niyyah for i'tikaf. In that case, it means that as long as he remains busy with salah, dhikr, listening to the lectures or sermons, he also receives the reward of i'tikaf. I always observed that my late father used to make niyyah for i'tikaf whenever he entered the masjid. Occasionally, by way of teaching and reminding his followers, he would raise his voice when reciting the words for niyyah. The reward for i'tikaf is as great as indicated by the fact that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam always used to perform i'tikaf. And you never have to actually do the you don't have to say your intentions out loud. Certain deeds can confirm one's intentions even, so But, to show people, to teach, as a teaching moment for people, it's okay. The example of one who resides in the masjid in i'tikaf is that of a person who, having gone to a certain place to appeal for something, that remains there until it's granted. When someone comes begging at our door and then refuses to leave until he has been granted his request, I am sure that even a person with the hardest heart among us will eventually agree to his request. Allah is much more merciful, and when someone persistently sits at his door, what doubt can there be in the fulfillment of his wishes? Allama ibn Qayyim, in explaining The significance of itikaf writes that the actual aim is to turn the heart away from everything except Allah and to make it come near to Allah, thereby forming a complete spiritual connection with the Creator. All worldly connections are thus cut off for the sake of gaining Allah's attention, and all our thoughts, desires, loves, and devotion become centered around Him. As a result, an attachment with Allah is attained, a love and a friendship that will be the only support in the loneliness of the grave. One can possibly imagine the great joy with which that time in the grave will be spent. And as one may know, there are certain restrictions of the masjid. One never gets dressed in the masjid. Of course, the trimming of the fingernails and the hair and all that stuff was not included, but there's other stuff too that may be allowed elsewhere. That's one can imagine the great joy with that grave will be spent. In Maraqi al-Falah, the author writes that itikaf, when properly and sincerely performed, is among the most virtuous deeds. One cannot possibly enumerate all the great advantages and benefits in it. In actual fact, what takes place in itikaf is that the heart is drawn away from everything else except the Creator, while the soul is actually laid at His doorstep. All the time one remains in a state of ibadah, even when one is in a sleep. One is still in his worship, striving for nearness to Him. And Allah says, according to a hadith, whoever draws near to me, the length of a hand, I draw near to him the length of 2 hands. And whoever draws near to me by walking, I draw nearer to him by running. Moreover, in itikaf, one seeks refuge in the house of Allah, and is safe therein from all enemies. Part B. Where to perform itikaf. The best place for itikaf is the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca. The next best place is Masjid al-Nabi in Medina. The next best place is Beit al-Maqdis in Jerusalem. Thereafter comes the Juma Masjid in one's own town. At last, but not least, the masjid nearest to one's house. Now, people come up with a masjid in which the Friday prayers are performed. Some say it has to be a place where the Friday prayers are performed. You can't perform it in a musalla, even it's not that there's not benefit to that, but Imam Abu Hanifa Rahmat alayh stipulates that the masjid should be one where the 5 daily prayers are regularly performed, while Imam Abu Yusuf and Imam Muhammad agree that any masjid is acceptable to the Sharia, can be entered for itikaf. And there's also merit for that in general. It's just not quite the level of itikaf that's being aforementioned, but a masjid is somewhere where the rules of the masjid are intended to ever be kept. So it's not back and forth. It's like, oh, well, today we're going to use this for prayer, or we're going to use this for prayer over here, but we're going to do something that would violate the terms of a masjid otherwise. Like if in this spot, if I got dressed, it wouldn't be a masala. It would lose its, if this was considered okay, that would not be acceptable. But were I to get dressed in my own bedroom, that's a different thing. Even if I pray in my bedroom, it's not dedicated as such. The above applies to the males. Else for the females, they should perform itikaf in the prayer room set aside in their homes. However, no such demarcated place exists. Any one room or part of the house should be set aside for this purpose. Itikaf is thus, in fact, an easier task for women. The domestic duties can be performed by daughters or servants under her supervision, and the woman in itikaf, while remaining in a section of her own house, is spiritually rewarded for it. It is so very unfortunate that in spite of this relative faculty, our women folk still remain deprived of the blessings of itikaf. And allowances were also supposed to be made for the women to observe, to go to the masjid when it's safe and that sort of thing. But